Grow CFO is where finance leaders grow together. Join thousands of like-minded professionals using Grow CFO to access the combined knowledge and experience of the finance leader community. You can join us today, growcfo.net. Hello and welcome to the Grow CFO Show. I'm your host, Kevin Appleby, and today I've got a fellow podcaster with me. His podcast is a diary of the CFO. His name, Ademola. Ademola, welcome to the Grow CFO Show.
Wow, thank you very much, Kevin Appleby. I love your name. And of course, I love your show, Grow CFO. It's a privilege to be on the show today. And of course, I hope we are able to do justice to the topics that we are going to be discussing. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Ademola, I love that accent. That voice was designed for podcasting.
Wow. Guess what? Should I let you in on a secret? Do you like to hear secrets?
Go on, I love to hear secrets.
Okay, this is a secret, right? I grew up in Nigeria. My name definitely shows that. Anyways, real quick, shout out to my country. I always have my country's flag right here with me. I'm very, very proud of my heritage. So in Nigeria, the very first independent radio and TV station is called Ray Power, and the TV station is called AIT. And my father's house in Nigeria is just at the back of the radio station. So I grew up basically listening to radio. Most kids grew up watching a lot of TV, but I grew up listening to radio and socializing with what they used to call the OAPs, that is the on-air personalities. So right from there, the dream was always born to try to be a broadcaster. But guess what? When I wanted to go to university, I told my dad, I want to study mass communication. And do you know what my father told me? The regular African father, he was like, come on, go and study something professional. You're a very bright-minded boy and you just want to waste your life with studying mass comm. Come on, you can be a mass communicator even when you are a chartered accountant or you're an economist. Study something professional. And he told me, if you pick mass comm, just know that you're going to pay the school fees by yourself. If I'm paying the school fees, you cannot pay mass communication. And we are many years down the line now. And of course, I'm a chartered accountant, have economics as my first degree, have a master's in business administration, been with the global big four accounting firms, PwC, KPMG, with a top 10 UK firm as well as it's Big Rothenberg. And of course, the CEO and founder of K-Dems Consulting Limited, hybrid in finance, tech, and media innovation. So there you go with the story and the secret.
Why the story? So the secret, you weren't allowed to do the communications degree.
Yes.
I suppose you look at that in one way, that communications is fine, but you've got to have something to communicate.
Absolutely.
All of that then background in finance, that experience, business, founding your own business gives you quite a platform to talk about.
Yes. So I'm always grateful to my father for giving me that guidance. And of course, I think that's what parents are meant to be there for, to give guidance to their children. So the only thing that we fault the African parenting system for is they tend not to explain the why behind the instructions. They just back the instructions to you and think you should follow without explaining the rationale behind, would I say, the instruction. But you always discover yourself. That's one thing. I went into university. I used to host events, anchor conferences, seminars. At some point, I tried improv, stand-up comedy. I knew that was not my thing, even though I'm quite a witty person. So I stuck to the formal events and kept on developing myself. As a teenager, I made a friend in church. This guy was a master's degree holder in communication and language arts. So he taught me a lot of the rudimentaries on communication. He was a radio host, a TV host. So he taught me a lot of practical things. So even though I did not go to school to study broadcasting, I was a broadcaster in my heart. He taught me a lot. And of course, I'm very grateful to the people who have actually, would I say, poured into me to make me the kind of communicator that I am today. His name is Ayo Ojorongbe, currently in the Philippines. He now has a PhD in communication and language arts. And the very first books I bought with my own hard-earned money in my life as a teenager, were books by Andrew Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and The Art of Public Speaking.
And great books to go for. And this is one thing that we constantly find in Grow CFO, where helping people firstly become CFOs and then helping new CFOs to become better CFOs. And a lot of what this is about storytelling. It's about not just understanding the numbers and being able to do the analysis, conclusions, and then express those conclusions as recommendations to the rest of the business.
Absolutely. I want to corroborate on something you said, storytelling, right? It is right up there on my LinkedIn bio. If you check my LinkedIn bio, I think the very last item there is storytelling for impact. So I'm very big on storytelling to make impact.
Yeah. And that storytelling, they don't teach you communications to pass your accountancy exams. You've got to learn it yourself.
I don't know what the curriculum in the UK is, but I remember when I was taking my ATS exams, I had to go the long route because I did not study accounting in university. I think the very first level, one of the courses there was communication skills. So I guess in Nigeria, it's called ICANN, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. I think they did a good job in at least making us aware of the fact that you have to communicate the numbers. The numbers tell a story, but if you cannot tell a story with the numbers, then you cooking the numbers are in vain. So I guess part of becoming a chartered accountant, a CFO, a finance expert in the course of my own training incorporated the communication skills. But definitely you can't learn to get to like an expert level with that course. But I think that course just was the basic, was the background, the foundation upon which the expertise is to be laid. So I'm grateful for that.
And you've taken that all the way to not just talking to clients in your current role.
Absolutely. For me, it's about the passion, right? So when you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work to you. But when you're passionate about any field of endeavor, it doesn't feel like work. And I always tell people, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So for me, growing up, I discovered that I had that unique talent of being a communicator, being a talker. I remember my parents used to tell me, try to listen more than you talk. You're talkative, but like you rightly said, you need to have something to communicate, right? You need to have something to talk about. So I'm not the kind of person that likes to gossip about people. I find that very irritating. I'm sorry, gossip lovers. But as a kid, I was a nerd. So my mom used to say often, readers are leaders, readers are leaders. And my dad had a massive library. So very early on, I was introduced to books on philosophy, psychology, sociology, anthropology, geography. Interestingly, my dad had a collection of the Nobel Prize winners for literature. A lot of people do not know that Winston Churchill was actually a Nobel laureate for literature. And I read some of his work. I read the work of contemporary philosophers and writers. Like there's this other guy I'm trying to remember because I did this course in philosophy, Bertrand Russell. Yeah, Why I Am Not a Christian. So I read those books as a teenager. And at the age of 16, my parents sent me to Bible school. I read the whole of the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. At the age of 16, I graduated from the School of Disciples, Redeemed Christian Church of God. So it really made me like a really well-rounded person, grounded in faith, grounded in the sciences. Because I remember I was reading books on physiology, human anatomy, pharmacology, biological sciences. I was reading books on geography, the social sciences, very big on the social sciences. I ended up studying economics, and it's just wild. Political science, anthropology. But I feel like these things make for a well-rounded person. You need to understand the sciences because the sciences are what help people with an objective mindset. The empirical method is what helps you to be able to observe phenomena or observe facts in the ecosystem in which you operate, in the environment in which you operate, and pattern them in order to form trends and identify patterns in order to be able to make forecasts, make decisions. History is very important, right? A lot of the work that we do in accounting is based on historical cost, historical data. You need to be a very good student of history in order to understand what has happened in the past, in order to be able to understand what is happening in the present and what can possibly happen in the future. So for me, I'm really grateful that even though I grew up as a nerd, that skinny kid who had to go do taekwondo, karate, and transition into mixed martial arts, right? has been able to become a well-rounded person. I had a guest from the United States, a top tax debt resolution expert, and she told me something. She said, people like you are rare to come by in this age and time. You are a modern day business philosopher. And I bear that title with pride. I think I have a philosopher in our own time.
I think, Ademola, I'd reflect on that and say, if you are taking the modern day CFO role, then you're asked to do so many things. The accounting, the analysis, and the drawing of results, those are the basics that just get you through the door. But on
Absolutely.
top of that, you've got to manage people, and you've got to get the best out of those people that you manage.
Absolutely.
Step up to CFO, and folk are asking you to do more than just manage the finance team. I'd be a little cynical here that the CFO gets to manage everything that nobody else wants to do. So you probably end up being in charge of procurement, estates. A lot of CFOs are also in charge of IT. Some are in charge of HR. It requires a wide breadth of knowledge. And it also requires, I think, a skill set that says, well, I don't know this area in detail, but I've got the sort of mind that can find out about it. And
curiosity.
I can trust people that work for me to get on with it and do it. Then to move on, you've got all of the dealing with the rest of the leadership team, dealing with investors, being the right person to the
stakeholder management, basically.
That I can't think of a role in business that's broader than what we ask the CFO to do. So all of that learning that you describe, it's all useful. But Adam, I'll go on and ask you another question that says, why podcast? Why are you producing every week the Diary of a CFO?
Before I give you that answer, I love what you said, about CFOs. And there's this joke I always say about CFOs, right? A CFO basically is a professional people pleaser. There you go. You just have to please all of the stakeholders.
I would qualify that because occasionally a CFO has to come along and give the bad news.
Yeah, the reason why you're giving the bad news is what you call this in philosophy, where you have to do something for the greater good. When I remember, it's actually a philosophical principle. Basically, the reason why you have to deliver the bad news is in order to please the greater number of people. When you think about it, so in the end, you're still a professional people pleaser because you have a responsibility to the public. And I think that's why in the US, they call our CPAs, certified public accountants, because your responsibility, remember, is not just to the management, it's actually to the public. And if your responsibility is to the public, you have to please the public.
Yeah, and your responsibility as a CFO and sitting on the board is to the rest of the board and the investors. And there are times that might bring you into conflict with the employees. Conflict may be the wrong word, but hey, as a management consultant in PwC, many times we were involved in cost reduction exercises. And usually, why didn't we get called in to do a cost reduction? It was because the client had left it too late and needed to save money pretty darn fast. Inevitably, what does cost reduction mean? It's zero-based budgeting. It's we are going to focus on these things, and we're not going to focus on these things. The things that you're not going to focus on, your next job is to make sure that you remove them from the business. And one clear fact is that people drive cost.
Involves a lot of tough decision making,
Comes removing people. I always remember the director I did a lot of work for, and I said to Alan, well, look, we're not going to be popular when we start announcing to people all these decisions that have got to be made. Kevin, why do you think when I choose my company car out of the company car pool, I choose the fastest one? So that as soon as we've made that announcement, we can be very quickly out of the factory gates before they start chasing us.
Yeah, I just remember the ethical framework. It's called utilitarianism, right? Yeah. So basically, it's an ethical framework that holds that moral action that helps you to produce the greatest overall happiness or well-being for the largest number of people. And if you're practicing utilitarianism, you unfortunately have to displease some people in order to ensure that the greater good actually does happen. So in the minutes, sometimes does not make sense to the people involved when you adopt the utilitarian approach. Often than not, you have long-term success of everybody that is involved in that decision making. Okay, you were PwC, right? And I'll bring this up. I love the framework, the professional framework for praising staff members at PwC. You talked about how CFOs have to do a lot of things, right? But I tell my colleagues, ex-PwCs, that we were given that cheat code: whole leadership, business acumen, technical competence, global acumen, and building relationships.
Yep.
When you combine those, it makes you a well-rounded individual and you're able to manage stakeholders appropriately. And of course, back to your question about why podcasting. So for me, I think I wear a chip on my shoulder when it comes to the whole podcasting thing. Number one, I grew up around the very first radio station in Nigeria, and I always felt like I was super talented. I always felt like I could do better than those guys I was seeing on TV and doing manning the radio. And growing up, I had two talents: singing and speaking. Oftentimes, I met people who could sing better than me, but I knew that I seldom ever met people that could make a presentation or speak in public better than I can. So studying economics, I remember studying it's a competitive advantage theory that is focusing on where you have a competitive advantage. And then it got to my head, brother, go to your area of competitive advantage. And guess what? The very first book my father gifted me was Think and Grow Rich. And that book really shaped my ideologies in life. And I always had that chip on my shoulder that I have to think of a way to grow rich with the talent that I am given. And given that background of faith, my very best verse in the scripture is Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. So for me, I had that dream growing up to be a broadcaster, but I switched the broad with the pod and I became a podcaster. So for me, it's about chasing my passion and impacting lives. So I like to tell people I'd rather impact 1 billion lives than make $1 billion. So what's the fast track to achieving that in this age and time? I think the shortcut is podcasting, and that's how I do it.
CFO isn't the only podcast that you do. You do another one as well.
That is the K-Dems podcast. So the K-Dems podcast is about growth mindsets, leadership, AI, and business insights. That is what it is about. I'm very passionate about AI. And of course, I don't know if you have seen my middle name. My name is Ademola Odewade. So my parents knew something other people did not know. And that is why my initials are AI. So
that's built for the future. Now, I did wonder, you've mentioned your faith a lot, and I see the name K-Dems in the other podcast. Is there a link?
So it's actually linked to my name. My name is Ademola. I come from the royal family in Ile-Ife, Osun State, Nigeria. So the cradle of Yoruba civilization is Ile-Ife. There are three major tribes in Nigeria. You have the Yorubas, you have the Igbos, you have the Hausas. And the Yorubas are like a very respected tribe. You can fact check me. The Yorubas are the most educated tribe in Nigeria. So when you get to look at the chartered accountants, the doctors, lawyers, most of them actually are from like the Yoruba extraction. So the meaning of Ademola is the crown has brought wealth. So Ade is crown or royal or king. Yeah. And in Nigeria, if you are Ademola, the nickname they would likely give you is Dames or Damie, or so my friends fondly call me Dames. So I just thought about it. Okay, king and Dames. So I can be a king of podcasting. And it just stuck. And of course, I'm also from the royal family, from Ile-Ife. So the monarchy, the king is called the Oni of Ife. So I'm like, okay, I will create my own identity. So King Dames, the king of podcasting.
Brilliant. Adam, I really love everything that you're doing. I love both of the podcasts. In preparing for this one, I listened to a couple of episodes, and what struck me as interesting, the last episode you published actually crossed the borders across the two podcasts. And
the intersection of it.
You've got this way of managing to publish the same person on both podcasts, which I think is tremendous, because I think that of the Grow CFO show, that we've had a lot of fantastic guests on here that have had stuff to share that goes much wider than the CFO audience. So well done for working out a way of doing
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. There are intersections, right? So real quick, allow me to do a real cheap plug. So the last episode was about mental health. And I recently got signed on by BetterHelp, which is the world's #1 online therapy brand. Mental health is something I'm very passionate about. So a lot of people do not know this about me, actually an ADHD person. So I had to work. I know I'm not allowed to swear on this show, but I had to work tirelessly to achieve the things that I've achieved today. I was very poor at mathematics, and I hope this is an inspiration to people listening to us today. I failed twice at O level. I failed mathematics, but I never gave up. I kept on chasing and applied myself to understand the principles. And I went on to become an economist. I had a very strong class of degree, second class upper, became a chartered accountant, worked with the global accounting firms, became an audit assistant manager. I have lectured over 2,000 accounting students. I have over 1,000 chartered accountants who have passed through my tutelage. But it's funny how people don't really know that this is a person living with ADHD who was able to apply themselves, apply the power of the mind and faith as well. And that is why I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me is my favorite verse in the Bible, because I've been able to go through adversity in my life, apply mental resilience, and also sought therapy to be able to manage the difficulties in life. So if you're going through therapy, if you're going through difficulties in life, I think it's a really fantastic idea to go for therapy, speak to somebody. You're never alone. There's no problem you're going through that another person has not gone through. There's no problem that doesn't have a solution. Speak up and you would always get that help. So I just thought to keep that in real quick.
Message to end with. And now I'd add to this that I know so many people that have succeeded, and some would say succeeded despite having ADHD. I'm very much looking at ADHD is something that has been given to you, and you've got a gift of having a brain that works in a slightly different way.
Yeah, neurodivergent.
You're wired in some way different to what a lot of people would call normal. And people somehow want to put that in a box and saying that's bad.
Yeah, what really hurts me.
Subscribe to that view because I've seen it.
What really hurts me, Kevin?
So many times.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Kevin. What really hurts me is when I see people taking their neurodivergence as an excuse to be a failure in life.
Yes.
I think that is totally unacceptable. I don't like that. If you try, you may fail, but if you don't, you have failed. So always go for something in your life. Never take no as an answer. If at first you fail, keep trying again. Always try. Always take failures as an iteration. Keep going for what you believe in. Me, I believe in my head, I'm the very best podcaster in the world. Sorry, Kevin.
I haven't got a voice like yours. I'll give you that.
Thank you very much. I believe it, and I keep working hard every day to prove that to myself. Don't seek people's validation. Only seek validation from yourself and your God if you're a person of faith. And always work every day to become 1% better. The compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. It will shock you what you'd achieve.
That, Ademola, I believe you have to take ownership where you are now. So many people will blame external factors and other people.
Yes, absolutely. I'm Nigerian. Where we come from, they say,
result of all of your own actions and decisions.
Absolutely. I love that.
Until you take ownership of that, you're going to get nowhere. And that falls into ADHD.
God bless you, Kevin. I love what you're saying. I really love what you're saying. A lot of people say they are from a poor background. But in Nigeria, they say once you cross the age of 30, you're no longer from a poor background. You are now the background. Yeah. You can only blame external factors for so long.
Indeed. Ademola, I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you. We've touched on things at the end that could have ended up in a complete podcast episode by themselves. Thank you for being this week's guest on the Grow CFO Show.
Thank you very much. And of course, love and respect to you. And of course, I cannot wait to have you on the K-Dems podcast and Diary of a CFO. Thank you very much. God bless you, Kevin.